Alright, so we have already popped off the screen and the dash. A total of 8 screws there. Couldn't have been simpler. It took me a total of probably 4 minutes, and most of that was going to get the camera to show you how to do it. So now what we're going to do to get all of the plastic off the bike is actually come in through the trunk. And what you can see here is 2 more Allens at the front right here. So we're going to go ahead and pop those off, and that will give us access to everything here in the front of the bike. So let's go ahead and get these off. Right, so now that we have these 2 out, the next thing that we're going to do is start taking the side fairings off the bike, because in order to get to the LED install, we need to get down here, and it is much easier to do all of this work with the fairings off the bike. So next thing we're going to do is right here, these 2 on either side. Okay, so we have the 2 screws on the right side of the front fairing out, 2 screws on the left side of the front fairing out as well, 2 screws in the front of the trunk compartment are out as well. So the next thing to do before we can start popping all of these off very easily is to remove the 2 inner panels. So if you're looking at a Mana GT from your forks, these are going to be the panels on either side on the interior. So while they're a little bit tough to get out sometimes, just a solid tug and they should come right out. So we'll go ahead and get those off now. Okay, so just to review where we're at so far, we have taken 2 screws off the front to remove the front screen. We have taken 6 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the dash. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that is the front of, that is the dash removed as well as the screen removed. 1 electrical connector in here that you can see is actually basically the master wiring harness for the entire bike. This had to be pushed in over here and then pushed up to release. So we have done that. We then opened up our trunk and we removed the 2 screws from the front, as well as 2 screws from either side of the bike, which allowed us to remove the inner plastic pieces from the fairing, as well as the plastic control over the ignition. So that's where we are at so far. What we're going to go ahead and do next is remove 1, 2, 3, 4 screws right here. Right, so we have gone ahead and removed the screws that, as you can see, connect the entire side fairing of the bike. What we have left now is 1 more under the front here that has to be disconnected, that will then allow us to remove the entire side fairing to get access to the LEDs. That these are the ones that are coming off, and so that we could get the new ones installed on. So let's go ahead and get these final 2 off in the front of the bike, and then we should be able to pull off our entire side fairing, hopefully. Okay, so we took the last screw out from the front, and now you can see all it really is a little manipulation to turn the fairing out so that these clips in the front can pop out unharmed. And there you go. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. There is so there you go. There is the entire side fairing off the Aprilia Mana GT. Now, if we wanted to, we could actually go one step further, and if we flip this over, you can actually break this apart here with these screws and actually separate this into 1, 2, 3 different fairing pieces. But most importantly, at this point, we now have wide open access to the side of the bike, and we can now get this old LED resistor that you can see is actually very important mounted to the frame, not touching anything else, with heat resistant tape material behind it as well. So one thing about these LED resistors, they get extremely hot. If you do try and mount them to your plastic fairing, you will end up with a nice hole in your fairing. So let's go ahead and show you this process again on the other side. We're going to come right under here, remove this last screw, give the fairing just a little bit of support while we do it. And then we are just going to pop this fairing right off, same exact way that we did the other one. So again, it is an outward motion with the fairing, so that these clips in the front right here can release. This LED is still wired up, as you can see, but all I need to do is pop that and pop this one. We'll actually just yank that because this resistor is coming off anyway. Pop that out, and there you go. So there is the fairing off the other side of the bike as well. So now you can see there is one fairing, there is the other fairing, and just to review this again, right, we had 2 screws for our visor that came out. We had 6 screws that came out for the dash. We had 2 screws on either side of the trunk. We had 2 screws in the front of the trunk. We had the interior plastic fairing on both sides. We had the ignition cover, and then we had 2 screws on the inside here to release the entire fairing unit, and then 1 screw underneath the front on either side right here as our final release point. And then it was an outward motion with the fairing, so pull it out towards us, because there are clips that you don't want to snap off. And so that's it. If we count it up, we have our 2 screws from our visor. We have the 6 screws from the dash. We have the 2 from the interior of the trunk liner. 2 from either side of the fairing. So that's those 4. These 2 right here from under the nose of the bike right there. And then these 2 are the 2 that I spoke about that came from the inside of the fairing right here. But that's it. So that probably took us, 30 minutes, and that's with trying to narrate the entire process. But at this point, I now have wide open, unfeathered access to the entire side of the front of the bike. If I needed to, very, very easy to go ahead and remove the entire headlight unit and pop that out as well. That's another 4 screws, but we don't need the headlight off for our LED install, so we're going to leave it where it is. So that's it, folks. 8, 12, 14, 16, 18 screws, a few minutes work, and we have basically disassembled the Aprilia Mana GT from a full fairing bike to, well, a monster. So hope you enjoyed. Lesson 2 will be actually installing the LEDs, and then we'll get to the rear of the bike.